This episode of The Energy Show is proudly sponsored by Sunlight and Power, the Bay Area's leading commercial and residential solar contractor. SLP has been designing and installing photovoltaic, battery backup, and solar thermal solutions since 1976. Help fight climate change. Go solar with Sunlight and Power today.
So, you want to save the world with clean energy? Make money doing it? Confused about the economic and technical realities of residential and commercial solar, batteries, heat pumps, EVs? Want the real-world scoop on new energy technologies, not manufacturer hype? Then tune in to the Weekly Energy Show, hosted by Barry Cinnamon. Insights from Barry's 40-plus years in the solar and energy industry will help you understand the future ways we'll generate and consume energy. And now, here's Barry.
Welcome to this week's Energy Show. Now, there's lots of changes with rooftop solar and batteries. In the old days, we just had two DC wires connected to a Trace or Xantrex hybrid inverter, and stacks of messy lead-acid batteries provided the backup power, plus charge controller settings, thermistor, special battery enclosure, low-voltage wiring that was like a quarter-inch thick, and holes in my jeans from all the acid. Because of all the complexity, I stopped installing battery backup systems in 2004. But things changed with lithium-ion batteries. That made battery backup systems less expensive, and with the cooperation from your utilities, with high peak electric rates, it really increased the economics, improved the savings of systems with batteries. So today we're talking about new battery system capabilities from Franklin. And over the past few years, Franklin has been our best-selling battery system. It's been reliable, it's cost-effective, and it has the best whole home backup features. So joining us today are Gary Lamb and Doug Amarhanow. Both are New Jersey boys like me, educated at Rutgers University. Gary is Franklin's founder, pretty much the brains behind their products. Previously, he was at Petra Solar. They were a microinverter company, and he did utility-scale solar work. Now, Doug is Franklin's product manager, and he made the jump from corporate finance to solar about 3 years ago. That's kind of an interesting jump. So anyway, welcome to the show, Gary and Doug.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Barry.
All right.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Okay. All right. Let's just kind of dive in. Can you guys give us an overview about Franklin?
Yeah, I'll get started. This is Gary. Franklin, I think we are more than a battery company, right? We're actually the pioneer in the whole home energy management system space. We are the first to launch a fully functional generator integrated system with PV and battery, and most importantly, it has proven working. The value is bringing the reliable turnkey solutions that is adaptive to a new solar power product, which most popular or well known for micro or string inverter technology.
All right. Any more background? How many employees do you guys have? How are you funded? Where are you guys working?
Yeah, we have recently founded in 2019, about 4 years and going on strong right now. And currently, I think we have around 300 employees globally. We were first backed by Sequoia Capital, and then we have some other major venture coming in. Currently, we are at a series. We just closed our Series B, and looking forward in our next round probably soon.
Where do you do the manufacturing of your equipment?
So right now, most manufacturers are done in China, in Shenzhen. Yeah, where the product has been proven most cost-effective and the reliability are rather good. And however, we are planning on our U.S. manufacturing roadmap.
Okay, and where are your offices and what territories do you cover?
We cover the whole U.S. We only sell in the U.S. right now, and we just started the Australia market. And all 50 states have a system up in Alaska, believe it or not. And
Hawaii, Puerto Rico.
Yep, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. We launched a product in Hawaii. That was our beachhead market. Had a lot of traction there because of the island grid, not that stable, and a lot of great cost share opportunity programs from the HECO utility there.
Yeah, Hawaii was a really good market because they were one of the first ones that kind of wiped out and eliminated net metering. It's also a good market because it's such a beautiful place to be. And the only problem that I had with doing work in Hawaii is when the surf's up, your installers are basically not on the roof or not working. So it's a hard thing to schedule, unlike where we can kind of crack the whip here. Well, from a customer standpoint, homeowner standpoint, talk to me about what's great about your products.
So I do want to make a note about the China manufacturing. It's really high quality China manufacturing. Everything's traceable from down to your simple resistor on your inverter board to each cell. Everything has its own serial number and QR code. So as it's being assembled, every step along the way, you have really tight quality control. And, that's the same type of quality control that's brought to your Apple products. So you have to have reliability, and it definitely starts at the design and manufacturing level.
And I was there and I saw that careful work and I saw those robots moving stuff around automatically on the floor and just get out of the way.
Yes, so back to the topic, right? The question was what benefits homeowner when choosing a Franklin battery, right? I think you pay for a system and you want it to work like that. It's a simple philosophy. So Franklin's reliability has been exceptional since day one, right? And it was spread by word of mouth by many people, both installer and homeowner. So when you want to purchase a system that works, it should be Franklin. Like, put it in a simple word. Of course, we can take it more.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point, Gary, that anybody who's selling a battery system, every company is going to say it works and it's reliable. Mm-hmm. But that's really, really, really hard to do. And,
yes.
And your system, what impressed us the most was it was by far and away, out of the box, the most reliable system, and it continues to be so to this day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things contribute to that reliability. As Doug mentions, from the whole design process to the manufacturing process until the very end quality process, a lot of work was put in behind, right? But unfortunately, those efforts are not easy to be seen. It could only proven by time, right? But I'm glad that within a very short period of time, Franklin's product has been proven very reliable to both installer and homeowner, right? That our reliability has been recognized by, I would call them third party, right? Word of mouth and also through third party report. A lot of time, as you mentioned, everyone would claim their battery are good, but it depends on where the word come from. It come from the manufacturer statement, or does it come from a customer perspective?
And, I've tested lots and lots of battery systems over many, many years, and the battery cells are all probably pretty good. That's not where the problem is. It's in all the other supporting electronics and the communications, et cetera. And then the other factor that has been tremendously important to the system reliability and usability is the S word, software. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to do, and to make sure you've got something that the customers are happy with in terms of an app on the cell phone, on the computer, right. An administrative portal, something that you guys can use to manage the system. So the software is, in my view, probably even more important than the hardware, because you may have perfect hardware, and if the software is buggy, you're going to have unhappy customers.
It is, and it is so hard to make it good. So one approach that we took is have a fully closed loop system that we only test with our own system. This is why you see the Franklin system is a standalone system with battery and inverter packed together. Right. Before we jump into the market has suffered through multiple challenges through different vendors trying to control each other's system, and things doesn't turn out quite well. Regardless how capable they are on programming their software, but two systems are two systems. Right. The most famous example was a NASA satellite, designed between the U.S. and the British team. While they're using two different metric systems working on the same number, right? Things turn out completely upside down, and this is what I call it. So in Franklin, we designed the entire package around the most important battery cell. Everything designed in-house with Franklin.
So interesting anecdote about the British and the U.S. issues with the system. I mean, when I grew up, we're learning the metric system, and then there was also the British English system, and then the British switched to the metric system, and we're still using the British system. It's kind of crazy. But the other example that a little bit more down to earth is really the closed architecture system that Apple uses.
Right.
They kind of control the hardware and the software, and it's a lot simpler that way than trying to take device drivers or whatever they are, firmware from a battery company and from an inverter company and integrate that into your system. That's really complicated.
Right.
And we kind of run away from those approaches right now.
Exactly. And
Right.
another great thing about us is why we are so reliable is we focus on one thing at a time, right? We only make one product, one system. So, over 300 people design around one system. I think it works way better than, we spread our effort into 10 different products.
Yeah. Now, what are the specific products that you guys have? What are you putting in a box that the contractors, the installers can buy?
Sure. Well, our core products are the energy management system, which lives inside the A-Gate controller box. And that's where all your AC connections are made. That is the brains of the system, if you want to call it that. And then you need at least one A-Power battery. And the A-Power battery is a completely sealed box. You have your battery cells, your battery inverter, and your battery management system within that box. And it's AC coupled to that A-Gate and all the other components within your system. So it's a very simple system. You opened up and spoke about those DC wires that are the size of your finger. That's not the case with these modern battery systems because everything's nice and simple. 10 gauge wire, 8 gauge wire, what have you, and it's all 240 volt split phase AC. The same stuff that's used inside your home.
And what about other peripherals, the generator components, the AP box? What are the other things that are on the side there?
Yeah, the Franklin system has a lot of features, and most often no two homes are alike in America. So you have these complementary accessories such as your generator, your smart circuits for your load shedding, and then also an AP box too. Say if you have a larger PV system, you can use this AP box to kind of help control your PV system while you're off grid. The generator is great because a lot of people throughout various parts of the country have a generator, and that's going to be your Texas, your Florida, your classic Generac areas.
So one of the things that I like the most about the Franklin system is the concept of integrated load shedding. Could you guys expand on that? Like explain it in customer terms, why they want load shedding, why they need load shedding.
Yeah, I think before talking into this, I think it's best to describe what we aim to do, right? A lot of people know us as a battery company, but as I stated earlier, we are more than a battery company. We want to take care of a homeowner, the entire energy management of your home needs. Basically, we design a system that allows homeowner to be self-sustainable on any form of energy. Renewable is great, but also non-renewable is acceptable whenever you need it, right? Energy is something that we need. Renewable is just a way of doing things. So our philosophy is to enable homeowner access to all type of energy and also controlling their home to be more efficient. So load shedding function is one of them that enable user to be more efficient. They could completely shut off something when they not need it. That is mostly used for example, to extend your battery, right? Minimize your home load. Also shedding off some load at the peak. Excellent for TOU applications in California, right? And more of that is being a more cost conservative and for even initial CapEx installation savings, when you have a very high load on the low side, but you don't have enough incoming capacity. For example, you have an old house with a very old electrical panel, less than 200 amps, right? But then you want to add EV and things. Adding a Franklin system with the load shedding capability will ensure your safety while you're handling that excessive power that is not capable to be supplied by the utility.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we learned really early on as we started to install a lot of battery systems, whether it was on a small house with a 100 amp service or a big house with a 200 amp service or a humongous house with 400 or 600. And basically, all homeowners, they want a lot of power. They want to run everything. And they also want everything to run for a really long time. But the reality is, with every single battery system on the market, You can't have it all. So how do you meet these conflicting and often expensive customer requirements? And how does load shedding fit into that? And how do multiple batteries fit into that?
Load shedding brings tremendous value for the homeowner. It's definitely your best bang for the buck. You can definitely go out there and purchase maybe your second or your third or your fourth battery and throw more inverter power at the problem and be able to turn on absolutely whatever you want in your home or turn on everything at the same time. That's not always going to be very practical for the regular economical purchaser that's purchasing a battery for basically your regular 1,500 square foot house. FranklinWH has that integrated load shedding through the smart circuits where you can automatically set everything for a seamless off-grid experience. When you're off-grid and there's a large weather event happening, there's a lot on your mind. And you don't want to think about, hey, I need to turn off the dryer and make sure that I'm not running my electric stove when the AC is running. You have to think about your family and whatever else is going on in your life at that time. Also, Franklin is the first home battery system that has the 200% overload capacity. So we do have the nice standard inverter, but we do have this great swing capacity where you can have the luxury of starting up all these other loads. Kind of takes the fine tuning and makes the engineering design process a lot easier.
Exactly. So what we are trying to do is to mitigate or overcome the challenge that has been existing for decades. So before Franklin come into the market, whole home backup was like an untouched part for installer. But no installer want to play with it because it brings into extensive engineering calculations. You need to size the right PV, the battery for maximum cost efficiency, etc. Right? So we are here to mitigate that challenge. Right. So not only by introducing the load shedding functions, but also introducing that 200% overload, we simply taking care of all these calculations for either installer or the homeowner. The whole process becomes so easy. You put in a battery and we guarantee with every battery you have, you can handle up to 10 kilowatt of peak load and up to 2.5 hours of continuous powering time.
So I'll tell you that the reason why this load shedding, after we're installing systems for a year, this was before Franklin, but the reason why this load shedding became so apparent to me that it was missing in the market was we had a customer here in Silicon Valley and they, put in, I don't know, I think it was 8 or 9 kilowatts of solar panels, and we put in a battery system and everything was hunky-dory. And the way we design the systems is that they basically cycle from 100% during the day, the battery's all filled up, and then they go down to 30% at night. And when it gets down below 30%, we tell the system to basically shut down so that if there's a blackout, it doesn't shut down, but if there's a blackout, you'll have 30% reserve, but it doesn't drain the battery any lower than 30%. So what happened, there was a blackout, and it happened in the middle of the night, and the system was working just fine, but the customers had an air conditioner running in the evening, and that drained the battery really fast. Now, normally people say, hey, if there's a blackout, I'm going to go, turn off circuit breakers. But if you're asleep, you're not going to do that. And so the thing just ran. And this was an unusual circumstance because the husband had a CPAP machine. It doesn't draw a lot of power, but when there's no power, he starts snoring. And his wife basically woke up and said, hey, you're snoring. Go to the couch. Get out of bed. And so that's what happened. I realized you got to have some way of automatically turning off these big loads when there's a blackout, because you might not be there, or you may be on vacation and there's a blackout and your pool pumps or your air conditioning is going to suck all that power down. Your battery's going to be gone, and you're not going to have power for the other things that you might really need in the house. So that's why it's so important. And when I first saw the Franklin product several years ago, I was like, oh, it's built in. That's terrific. Now we don't have to put in like 3 batteries in a humongous system to kind of keep these customers happy, particularly the wife, to keep the husband from sleeping on the couch if the CPAP machine goes on. But it really made sense. And so that's from a customer perspective why we really, really like it. All right. Now, really good insights about, powering the whole home. And Franklin, I think, stands alone with that. But We're in a situation here in California, and I think it's also the case in Hawaii, and I'm sure it's going to be exactly the same in many other states, where customers want to add a battery, and we love it, and we love putting the Franklins, and at the same time, they want to add more solar capacity, but they're restricted under California's Net Billing Tariff rules. Basically, they can't add any more than 2 more solar panels without losing their net metering grandfathering, and that's very, very valuable. How can people getting a Franklin system add more panels at the same time that they put the battery in without losing their net metering benefits?
Right. So the California Solar and Storage Association, CALSA for short, has been working with the utilities in their very complex rules for this thing called NEM-MT, multiple tariff is what the MT stands for. And you kind of build out a new battery and solar system from your main panel as a subsystem. And that subsystem there is really there to address your new home loads. And say that's your heat pump or your second EV charger. That system is there directly to meet those loads. And best of all, it's PCS zero export. So there's software within the energy management system to make sure that there's no interaction with the grid from this new system, which is exactly why the utility allows it, because from the utility's perspective, they have no view of this new system. And for the homeowner, they're getting the benefit, the economical benefit of this new system.
That just means this new solar system will not have an impact on your existing grid infrastructure.
Yeah, and then the utilities don't want people to put in more output to the grid, and that's why you have this separate, integrated but separate system with a PCS or power control system that keeps the new system from pushing too much power back to the grid, which would make the utilities upset, and you could lose your net metering benefits.
Yeah, so with the new zero export system that meets your new load, of course, Franklin offers this great feature where it's legacy inverter agnostic. So whatever the age or make of your previous solar inverter, you can add that to your new system, and that can all contribute to the backup of your house during a potential outage.
And I think, from my understanding, Franklin really still is unique in having the most flexible system that works if you want to increase your solar capacity without losing your NEM benefits. And Doug, as you mentioned, we're using the Franklin AP box and the Franklin battery when we have an existing Enphase system or we have an existing SolarEdge system, because the Enphase battery with that AP box can handle this funky PCS calculation, and the utilities accept it, which is all we care about.
Yeah. And I just want to mention one thing, how we achieve that agnostic energy source compatibility is through sacrifices, right? No system will work 100% with everything without any sacrifice. So we have studied extensively, for example, to allow compatibility with very legacy inverter product, we will have to take away the frequency controls for inverters, right? So in Franklin, we adopt a bipolar switch, but it may sound a little backward, but however, it guarantees 100% compatibility. So anyone with any system, now you could tie your any age solar system or any other forms of energy into a Franklin. And given the large capacity and how powerful the battery is, it would just take any energy that you feed to him.
We're using Franklin batteries with old Enphase systems, SMA inverters, Fronius inverters, SunPower inverters, SolarEdge inverters, old, new, it all works. And it's just one less thing for our salespeople, our design team to worry about. And it just works. Just plug it into that bus.
There's a guiding design principle at Franklin. It's called the KISS method, to keep it simple. And
what's the second S stand for?
That's for not on the podcast. And yeah, relying on simple physical connection to simulate the grid and make the inverter, regardless of whatever it is, think that it's on the grid still and perform as it should be. And we're talking a lot about PV inverters. It's not just limited to PV inverters. We have also a handful of small wind systems connected. So maybe you're in like the Northwest Islands and it gets quite dark there during the wintertime. You want a backup for your backup.
Fuel cell.
Oh yeah, the fuel cell.
Yeah.
Oh, good. And I can have a home electrolyzer someday connected into the
Someday.
Franklin system, generating hydrogen for 24 hours a day.
Yeah, cold fusion,
Yeah.
whatever is ready.
Cold fusion, yes,
It's a
yes.
small modular, yes.
All right, good. Well, let's talk about some really down-to-earth building code issues. So some of the building departments around here, and I think all over the country, obviously, they have restrictions on where you can put batteries and how close the batteries can be installed. How is Franklin kind of optimizing your system's location and packing of those battery systems?
Sure. So, well, it really all starts at the component level. We have done a lot of homework on comparing different cells to make sure that we have very high quality cells, extremely consistent cells, and we have a terrific battery management system to make sure that those cells stay within the safe operating range. When you see those like news stories of the e-bike in New York City catching on fire, that's because that system simply didn't have a BMS on it. With the Franklin system, we have multiple levels of BMS controls. We have the EMS controls so that everything stays within its proper safety limits. And then we do extensive safety testing. We have the UL 9540A, which is the most famous one, where you induce a thermal runaway on one system, one A power battery system, by the way, and make sure it doesn't propagate or catch the other batteries next to it on fire. And we have successful test. You can stack two batteries next to each other, adjacent, within 4 inches of each other, 10 centimeters. And then recently, the San Jose jurisdiction and other safety-minded jurisdictions within California have worked with UL to come up with UL 9540B, which is a supplement to the supplement, and really making sure that the batteries stay safe in the home in the event of a larger fire, maybe your lawnmower or something in your garage caught on fire, and want to make sure that that doesn't catch the batteries on fire.
I think they're going, candidly, way overboard. Yes, the UL 9540B, and you're worried about an electric lawnmower or a DeWalt leaf blower burning your house down. But meanwhile, you've got one car with gas in it and then another EV in there and then probably a hot water heater in the garage. And all that's going to be much more prone to damage and explosion and fire than a really nicely packaged battery system. But we really like it because Franklin allows us to put in multiple batteries fairly close together, whereas companies that haven't passed these UL 9548 tests so thoroughly, we have to put the batteries 3 feet apart. And that makes it really hard to put two batteries in because a lot of times you can't put them that close. And there's also a spacing that has to be away from entrance and exit windows and doors. And so that makes it tough to put in more than one battery in a lot of smaller homes, whereas with Franklin, we can kind of pack them in there, which is great.
Yeah. Safety is our number one design concept. Like, we have to ensure safety. We do receive a lot of feedback from our partners and homeowners saying our battery is a little too bulky, a little too thick. But what I want to say is our battery is a little bit over-designed. Even for the UL 9540 AB, whatever, it's a little bit over-designed, so make sure it's way beyond compliance, right? If you have a chance, I hope you don't, but if you have a chance opening up our battery, you will see a very robust steel chassis with almost 100 bolts tied in the entire PE components and the battery all contained within that steel body armor, right? That hopefully will prevent anything from coming out or going in.
It reminds me of one of my first cars, a Volvo station wagon. It's boxy, it's indestructible, and it's safe. And so you guys are like the Volvo of the battery system. All right. There's a lot of interest in virtual power plants, or another TLA 3-letter acronym called VPP. Is Franklin participating in some of these opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have VPP, or old term was called demand response events, or demand response programs. And we are participating in those throughout the country. We have some demand-side grid support programs here in California that we're participating in with various partners. Of course, we have Hawaii, the birthplace of demand response. We have a strong program there that makes a lot of sense for homeowners and the utility. And then we have, of course, Texas. Texas is like the hottest place you can be for a battery at the moment, with participation in ERCOT. And also, I'm sure you've seen the crazy heat waves throughout various parts of the country where the batteries come online, and they really do make a difference when they're all contributing to the grid. And then, most notably, we've heard of the new Duke program in North Carolina making a splash, and then Connecticut and Connected Solutions also in the Northeast.
All right, that's kind of taken off, and I think it started in Vermont at Green Mountain Power, and then Sunrun's got a lot of programs, and Tesla has programs, and you guys are very involved. We use your system with the California DSGS program, and it worked great.
These VPP programs are really contributing a nice offset to the effect that high interest rates have had on homeowners and the affordability of these battery systems.
Very good. Well, we talked about the VPPs. What about EV charger products? What do you guys have in that realm?
We currently do not have an EV line up, but our philosophy, again, we remain as an open ecosystem, right? That allowing almost all the partners who offer a EV product, either a charging or a direct bidirectional reverse charging product, to be compatible with the Franklin system.
So you can put in like a 40 amp EV charger, and that's just going to be in one of the smart circuits, and that can be controlled by the system and turned off or on depending on what the status of the battery is and the grid, et cetera.
That's correct. And our
Sounds like you've installed one before.
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be comforting, our 8 gates, the energy management system, is ready to take those load in. The program is already ready inside. So if any of the compatible product are ready, we could start deploying them.
Okay. Well, let's talk about kind of high level as a company with a great battery system coming into the market in the U.S. What were some of the challenges you had as Franklin scaled up?
I think I would take on that. Since day one, a lot of challenges come with, how the size of the company, the credibility, right? As we are a startup company, we got questions about how we going to launch a product, right? Things get better when in 2022 when we launch a product. Back in 2020, when I only have a PowerPoint, it makes some difficulties, people, believing in us. But other than that, the challenge really, we took a lot of that ourselves. So when we start approaching real customer, probably towards the end of 2021, when we were able to ship products, right? I've been sitting in front of a very large installer, and I remember he asked me right here in front of me and said, Gary, there's hundreds of people selling similar products before you sitting on that chair. Like, what difference would you make? Every one of their spec looks fantastic, looks too good to be true, same as yours. What difference you're making? I'll tell them that, our product is already certified, and I could deliver a sample unit to you in 2 weeks. That's what's the difference we are. And in 2 weeks, you test it out and you think I lied to you, just throw it back to me.
And the product spoke for itself. I think, we started early on, and I think in California right now, you're probably in the top 3 of the battery suppliers, which is really, it's amazing. And now we still have a lot of companies come to us with new battery systems. And it's like, well, how are you going to be better than the top 3 or 4 or 5 companies that are already there? And it's your timing to market was really good. Your ability to scale was really good.
And I think one of the very important point contribute to the rapid growth is the reliability, right? A lot of people get to 99% reliable, but how to get to 99.99% reliable is completely unreal. Right, and this is what we are aiming to do, right? I can't guarantee 100% because nothing gets 100%, but we will get as close to 100% as possible. And this is so far, I think this is what we are presenting ourselves into the market for.
My personal experience with all the battery systems that I've fiddled around with, most systems are probably sub 80% reliable. And that's the reality. And you guys have been, for us, 99% or more. And that's really, really good. And when there have been issues, and usually new things come up, your customer service team was really good. They were right there, and they were very, very responsive. That's great.
Yeah, we have a bigger service team than our sales team from the beginning.
Yeah, and that is something that is a surprise to most companies that are coming out with a battery system. They spend all their money on product development and software and hardware, and they bring it to the market, and there's one guy answering the phone to people configure it, and then they have a very, very hard road. Oh, it's tough. Whereas having that customer service team ready in case something's going to happen, and something's always going to happen, really, really makes sense. Okay, we talked a lot about residential systems. Do you have any plans for small commercial systems?
Actually, right now we do have a small commercial product that's available that can also fit multifamily applications. This is our split phase 208 volt product. So normal commercial 208 volt service is 3 voltage legs offset 120 degrees from each other. This to a 8-volt product has 2 out of the 3 voltage legs. So think in like a condominium multifamily type development where you want a battery for your legally required solar system. This also works there. But then you take that to the small commercial space. All new small commercial as of January 1st, 23 requires PV and storage. So most often that storage is really small requirement. It's a function of the PV. And you can probably get to that minimum requirement by having 1, maybe 2 Franklin A-Power batteries.
And we prototyped that. We tested it. And here we've got our 11,000 square foot office warehouse building. And we've got one of the A-gates and the A-Powers. And it's powering 2 of the legs, the 2 of the 120 volt legs in a backup subpanel. And not if, but when the PG&E power goes out, which it happens, pretty often, we've got our security systems backed up, our internet systems running, many of the people's computers are running, the lights are running, pretty much all the lights. And then when the power comes back on, we didn't even know. It's just suddenly that's when the HVAC system comes back on. So it works really good. I think that's a really big opportunity for you. Well, we talked a lot about the company. Let's talk about, from a personal standpoint. How did you guys get into the solar industry, and what do you think after riding the solar coaster for the past 4 or 5 years?
I will start. I started the solar since I was in college. I remember taking the first Solar 101 from a course at Rutgers with Professor Dr. Dunbar Burney. Yeah, he's definitely my guiding professor into the solar industry. Since that class, I think I'm enough, right? Since I was young, I'm always fascinated with electronic stuff. But then I also realized how much energy it consumes because my mom always complained about the electric bill when we were living in Hong Kong. We live in a small apartment. However, electric bill is super expensive, right? So that grows in my mind. So everything. So I know since I was a kid that either I'm going to work on 2 ways. One is developing electronics components or developing energy-related products. So the Solar 101 class definitely got me into the solar and renewable. And this is how I started probably back in 2008. And then once I got that, I think I have the opportunity to jump on that solar decathlon projects by Department of Energy, right, as part of asking too much question on the class. So got dragged out by the professor. Hey, you want something more challenging, right? And I think this is where I met also Doug back in 2009 or 2010. This is like the first thing we work on.
So that was a solar decathlon homes, and were they displayed in the mall in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, exactly. We were building 1,000 square foot, I forgot how heavy.
Yeah, it was 1,000 square foot home, and it had 10 judgment criteria. It had to be net zero and also very affordable. And there were 20 homes, 20 different schools, and it all competed on the national lawn.
Yeah. I remember at that time we were building some crazy concept, a concrete panel, the precast concrete panel, isolated home, weight about 50 tons, something like that.
Yeah, it was excessively heavy.
And we have to ship from Jersey down to Washington, D.C., right? And then after that, I continue on my solar path. As you mentioned, I work with Petra and then a few other solar company, slowly moving from research side a little more, and then product marketing, and then sales, right? And eventually get up to a more management role. And I think that accumulate a lot of experience. So the last 4 or 5 years of solar closer wasn't so surprising for me. When I first in the industry in 2009, I remember Petra selling their AC module solutions for almost $7 or $8 per watt. Yeah, without the structure, just panel, right? So it's pretty amazing time.
Yeah. And how about you, Doug?
Yeah, how did I get into solar? I've been in many different career fields. Like Gary said, we worked together on Solar Decathlon back in 2009 and 2010, and that was a great first touch on solar. But then at the time, I guess I was a little bit too uptight and thought it was not a great time to get into solar because we had just gotten out of the recession, yada, yada. I wish I did it back then, but I got into commercial construction and worked as a design engineer for a long time. Then transitioned into tax credit underwriting. And, at one point, things started to melt together and click. Hey, maybe I could use a construction background along with some tax credit underwriting and get into renewables development. And got to stay in touch with Gary. And then through a mutual friend, I heard that he was working on a new project. He had his own company. And our joke in our friend group back in engineering school was, hey, we're all going to be working for Gary at some point. And it kind of did come true because, a couple of other people are working as consultants now too. So yes, it is great to work on the residential side of the table and great to contribute to this company.
Well, how can people get in touch with Franklin?
Yeah, so please reach out to us. We want to speak to you, hear from you with whatever suggestions or questions you may have. info@FranklinWH.com. That's info@FranklinWH.com. We're still the new kid on the block, and we want to make sure that you're headed in the right direction on your electrification or resiliency journey.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, that's fantastic. That's all the time we have on this week's Energy Show. And Gary and Doug, I really appreciate your coming by on an evening to join me on this week's Energy Show recording. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. If you missed any of today's show, you can always go to the Energy Show website at www.energyshow.biz and listen to the podcasts.
This episode of The Energy Show was proudly sponsored by Sunlight and Power, the Bay Area's leading commercial and residential solar contractor. SLP has been designing and installing photovoltaic, battery backup, and solar thermal solutions since 1976. Help fight climate change. Go solar with Sunlight and Power today.